Hey, this is Ken from Coffee Crafters, and I'm here with Jason Scott, who builds the Prometheus units for our roaster. And we've been testing for the last couple of days, trying to get the machine dialed in, which has been going pretty well. And it was really nice because when we build the machine, you know, we put things where we think they're supposed to go. And as we found out, we had to move a couple things, but
a few things. Had to disassemble the whole roaster.
A simple thing. So, obviously the roaster will accommodate the CoPilot, but this roaster is going to come with the CoPilot as standard equipment. And Jason has rebuilt this unit specifically for the Valenta 15. And I'll let Jason show you that in a minute. And one of the reasons was we're preheating the air on this roaster, which makes a huge difference in the performance. And so the new CoPilot accommodates that feature. And Jason, why don't you show them what's different about this CoPilot than the original?
It looks very much like the CoPilot that we use on the Valenta 15. But we've made some upgrades internally to the robotics, brushless electronic motors. But the big difference is we now have 2 temperature inputs. So every CoPilot up to this point had 1 temperature input probe. We'd monitor bean temperature. We would adjust the heat automatically based on that bean temperature. But now that we do the preheating of the air, we need to monitor that preheated air temperature. We want to make sure that it doesn't get too high. And so our second temperature input, we're going to monitor the temperature of our air intake system. And if it gets too high, there will now be a slider on screen in Artisan software where you can electronically, by a few clicks of your mouse, change a little damper that's on the back of the roaster to allow a little bit more cold air to come in, so we can kind of regulate that air, that maximum air intake temperature.
Right, so we're roasting in the factory, and the factory is climate controlled to 65 degrees. And so one of the things that we found was it took a very small adjustment in opening on the air on the back to cool the air down. And so that's what, there'll be a servo connected to a little door back there, and the CoPilot will tell it what to do. And also there'll be a slider on the side of your laptop screen where you can add or reduce the air. So because it is so important to preheat that air to get it up to capacity, preheating the roaster might be something people want to do. You can start from a cold start. It's going to do the same thing that it always does. One of the things that we were impressed with is once we got the bean temperature probe moved to a location where it was no longer affected by the hot air, those graphs smoothed out were very consistent.
The tracking performance is exceptional. I'd say better than any roaster up to this point. They're beautiful tracking of the background curve.
And that's something I've learned about temperature probe placement, because we jam them in there and they do their thing. We had the bean temperature probe in the roast chamber too close to, it was more than an inch away, but the problem was sometimes it would get a little burp of hot air or something. That hot air would go hit that probe, drive the temperature up, and it was spiking up and down, up and down, up and down. And as soon as we moved it out of there into a different location, completely smoothed out.
Yes. Placement of the temperature probe is a critical factor in automating a roaster.
Yeah.
And this goes for people that have the Valenta 7 or even the Artisan. If there's a CoPilot performance issue where the heat is going up and down, 99% of the time it is a probe placement issue. It's not software, it's not settings. The probe is too much in the hot air stream, so it's being impacted by the hot air stream. So it's actually measuring the hot air temperature instead of the bean temperature itself, which is the change that we had to make yesterday.
Yeah.
Initially, we were measuring more hot air temperature than bean temperature, and now we've got it fully submerged in that bean mass, and it's an accurate temperature reading. So this now has an accurate temperature control.
So the original probe placement gave us a minimum load size of 2 pounds. We moved the probe around to the front of the slanted part of the roast chamber, and we can still do 2 pounds.
Yes.
When you're running a graph on it, it barely covers the probe when you start roasting, and so there's a little bit of a wobble at the very first part of that curve, and then it settles in and finishes beautifully.
That's
so,
right.
yeah. So still 2 pound capacity. Maximum load capacity, we just tested that just a few minutes ago, and on a warm machine, we were 9.5 minutes to 440 degrees. We're about 9 minutes to 430, right?
That's right.
So if you do a darker roast profile, it's going to take a little bit longer than that. We always try to build a machine so it'll do 6 turns an hour, and it will do that on a medium roast. It will not do that if you're doing a really dark roast, you might only get 5 turns an hour. But yeah, so yeah, we're good. When we did the last roast, we just turned it on manual, turned it all the way up and let it do its thing.
Yes.
Yeah.
And you get a nice declining rate of rise until the very end. Once you get after first crack, getting close to second crack, there you get a little bit of a flick. But if you're just taking a roast up to maybe second crack at full capacity, yeah, you can just leave it at 100% heat and you get a pretty nice profile.
And we have so much more throttle on this on the lofter than we need.
Yes.
We had this turned down to less than 3.5 on the dial for a 15-pound load, which also affects it. So that's one of the things that also helps increase the performance is we have lower CFM lofting a larger load. The cool thing about the CoPilot is when you're turning the loft down, you don't have to make corresponding adjustments to the heat because the computer's doing it.
Yep, takes care of it.
So yeah, so we also have the Cyclone over here. It will come without that little piece of blue tape because that's where a thermocouple went for testing, but that's going to be a standalone product, the Cyclone. $2,500 without the blower. If somebody with a Valenta roasters or artisan roaster wants to add that, they can. Got a pull-out box on the bottom with a door glass in there so you can see what your chaff level is. Traditional bean cooler like we've had before. Loading chute up here, just stays there all the time. So yeah, it was a fun project. It was a fairly easy build after we went through all of the development on the 7. We just made this bigger, but then we also took things because we isolated the loft motor. So only the intake of the loft motor housing is exposed to the hot air. The electric part of the loft motor is down in the ambient air where it stays cool. So we were able to, where on the Valenta 7, we were taking the intake air up to about 110 degrees. This one, we take it up to 130. And if it passes 130, you'll get a little window will pop up on the CoPilot screen and tell you to lower it. If it gets up to, what is it? You have it set at 140
degrees.
Then the CoPilot will activate the little actuator arm in there and open up the vent to bring it down. And as we found out, it takes very little opening to bring the air temperature down.
It is very effective.
Yeah, it was very effective. So, yeah, it was a fun project. It's been a fun couple of days of testing. We'll have some screenshots you guys can look at to show you what those roast curves look like. And yeah, so we're excited to get this thing on the market. Yeah. The one thing that we're doing is we're waiting for one part to get in, and that is the perf for the bean cooler tray. And as soon as that's in, we'll be able to get them out. We're thinking that it's going to hit the market around the 1st of February, and it'll be dependent on that one part coming in. So we'll see what that is. Everybody's been asking about the price of the roaster. So we wanted to wait till the very last minute to get all of the costs in. And we also wanted it to come with the Prometheus CoPilot as standard equipment. So it'll come with every roaster, and it's going to hit the market at $17,500, and that includes all the full system, chaff collector, blowers, all the stuff that goes with it, software. The Prometheus unit will come pre-installed, pre-tested, and ready to just plug the USB into a laptop.
That's right.
It'll be ready to go. So we'll be posting more stuff, more roasting videos coming up. I'm on vacation next week, so probably do those videos when I get back. And so stay tuned, and we'll have some more information for you.